Good, excellent. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Bruce Pond. Just to give you a little bit of background on myself, I spent 12 years building banks around the world, mostly automotive banks, and then I was also a consultant before I came into the blockchain space 5 years ago. And when we came into the blockchain space 5 years ago, Bitcoin was kind of a pariah. We took our first money in Bitcoin, and we had a heck of a time getting a bank account. And now we've gotten to the point where we've synthesized a lot of ideas together to bring kind of what we believe is a big idea, which is Ocean Protocol. And that is a decentralized, built on blockchain, data exchange protocol, so something that allows for data and services to be shared that doesn't extract rents, to unlock data for AI. And this goes to what Tal was talking about, is that data is the most critical kind of lifeblood of what we need to do to advance AI. It's also the moat that several companies have that most other people don't. And I'll talk a little bit about that.
It's actually connected to the camera, but is not amplifying, so if you can speak a little bit.
Sure.
Thank you.
So, in 1999, a fellow from JP Morgan bought a gold mine. He had made enough money in the financial services sector, and he wanted to try his luck, and rather than buy maybe a Formula One team, he decided to buy a gold mine. And not being from the mining industry, he went to this gold mine and he said to the geologist, what can we do with this data? We've collected it for 75 years. We have 7 or 8 terabytes of it. Can we open source it and try to find out where the gold is on this property so that we can know best where to dig? And of course, the geologist said, this is the crown jewels. We cannot release this. No mine in the world up until this point had released their geological data. Anybody, have you all heard this story, or is this new? Good. So what happened? He convinced the team, because he owned the mine anyways, he convinced them to say, yes, let's do it. And they released in Red Lake, Ontario. I don't know, who's been in Canada before? Yeah? If you know Canada, this is in the middle of nowhere. There is nothing probably within 1,000 kilometers of that mine of note, except probably my hometown, where I come from. And what he did was he said, okay, let's put the 75 years of geological surveys online. We have 6 terabytes of proprietary data, and I'm going to release $1 million to people who point us to different areas where we should be looking for gold. What happened? 1,200 people around the world, many of them not data scientists, many of them just amateurs from 50 countries, took a look at the data and they started mining it. And what did they get out of it? They got 150 sites. 50% of them were not even known as places where the mine should look at, and 80% returned commercially viable deposits when they drilled them. They got 8 million ounces of gold. They gave out $575,000 in prizes, and their valuation went from $100 million to $9 billion. This is one of the richest men in Canada now. And he uses this, he's doing this I think in Quebec and a couple other places, but he is using this to acquire mines that are sub-performing, releasing the geological data, and then popping up their valuation, and essentially using data. So the lesson here is data, when exploited, can be extremely valuable, and you have a number that proves that. To put it another way, if data wasn't valuable, why are there so many hacks? These are the hacks just in 2018. Many of you, in fact, all of you, I'm guessing, are affected in one way or another here. This is from, I think, Data is Beautiful, and it just scrolls down, and it starts from something like 2013, where there are virtually 1 or 2 data hacks a year, to now, where I think there's in the range of 100 data hacks this year, and it's only going to continue increasing because the data is valuable. Also, as a counterpoint, you all know these guys, Facebook and Google. They are essentially the vacuum cleaners sucking up our data, whether it's our social graph, whether it's our search, what we buy, where we go, where we travel. Pretty much anything that we do online, is tracked in some form or another by Google and Facebook. And this is kind of the counterpoint to Tal's talk, is that there are companies out there who have data and the data science expertise and the resources to deploy it. But that opportunity is concentrated, and that's not fair. It's also not sustainable, because if these are the companies who have all the power, then there's going to be a certain point in time where many societies, many governments, many individuals are going to say no to this and find other ways. But some of the interesting things about AI are that we have, in the last 3 or 4 years, gotten some huge advances just because of the data and the algorithms coming together. We have certain image recognition right now that happens in your Google Photos or what have you. You all see that in Facebook and such. These are advances that were not conceivable 5 years ago. You have voice recognition, where you now talk to a device and it gives you music recommendations, it opens and closes your doors, these types of things. This is unimaginable 5 years ago. Mastering games that we thought were the height of human kind of intellect. There are a couple startups I want to just quickly tell you, but I can't give you their names. But there's one startup that essentially is a bot that runs on your computer. If you have a business like supply chain or ERP or accounting, it's a bot that just tracks what a day-to-day worker will do. And in one day it's trained, and then it can actually do what the worker is doing as the content is coming in on the email. Now this startup is like growing very, very rapidly. It's focused mainly on the business ERP space and stuff like that. But typically they'll go in with this demo in one day, and then the next day the company will buy 100 seats. And it doesn't mean that the people are replaced. It means that the people who were doing these jobs before are now, they have superpowers, because all the mundane work is taken away because of AI. Yes?
Why can you not share the name of that company?
Because it's not a company that I really feel comfortable sharing right now. It was from a different kind of investor that that we're a portfolio company of, and it's just not something that I feel comfortable right now. So there's another startup that in the last 5 years, what they've done is they've built technology that reads CVs and job postings. And what they did is they combined that with natural language processing and hands-on robotics, so that they have a robot in front of you, and you can just walk up and you say, I would like a data scientist with 4 years of experience, focused on experience with Scikit and Python and this. And what it'll do is it will find across the world the top 3 candidates. So if you give it enough kind of criteria, it will find you those top 3 candidates, which could help revolutionize HR, because it means that an HR expert, a recruiter, can focus on getting work and jobs, and the AI helps them find the candidates, so that if they get a lead, they could return 3 candidates and say, if I can get one of these 3 to join you, I can, with high confidence, kind of pick to say that this person could probably work well in your organization. It's a small company now. Hopefully it'll grow up pretty quick. And then you have other things like legal discovery, where you compress 6 months of work that associates used to do with computers and AI. And then stuff like optimizing our electric grids. Our electric grids right now are so complex and they're so fragile in a sense that we cannot actually have humans managing them. Our entire electric grid, mostly around the world now, any modern one, is managed by AI. And looking forward into the future, of course, autonomous cars. We already have brain scans where you can essentially read people's minds. This stuff is here, and it's coming faster and faster. I was just reading about a robot that performed surgery on a pig last week, sutured them back together, which will come to humans very quickly. And then also, it's been clearly shown that AI is much, much better at diagnosing ailments than humans are, because they just have such a much broader experience range of seeing what cancer cells look like, et cetera. So this is what data is going to allow if we can democratize it and get it across to the data scientists as well as to the AI researchers. So Ocean Protocol, that is essentially our mission. And one thing that is very clear is that being the pioneers, we came from the AI field, not me, but my co-founders. They were experts in AI before we even started on the blockchain space, and they were experts in data. So we're kind of at the confluence of three of the hottest trends, technological trends on the planet, and the most powerful. Our mission is to put these three kind of components together towards use cases that help humanity as well as the planet while spreading the benefits as broadly as possible. Because what we do know is talent is equally distributed, but opportunity isn't. And we believe that with the internet and with components and tools like Ocean Protocol, you can start to have that type of dispersion of opportunity. Because the reality today is that you have lots of people who have kind of the AI algorithms that are very valuable, and you have lots of enterprises that have the data but don't have any of the skill sets to unlock that. And instead of right in the middle having Google, Facebook, Amazon, and Apple controlling that and being kind of the lock point, is there a way that you can make that more permeable? Is there a way you can bring governments, enterprises, data scientists, AI researchers, all so that they can just access what they want? I think Elad had said that in his intro, where in the future, you will be able to be somebody who asks smart questions, but you won't know how to put those components together. And there will be a way that you can create a supply chain of services automatically that solve that problem for you. So you just raise your question, you say, I have $1,000, give me the best answer for $1,000. Data, AI, storage, algorithms. And that's what Ocean Protocol is trying to do. We have kind of the existing legacy world of enterprises. We have the new world of blockchain and crypto that are putting together decentralized components. And we want to be kind of this base layer that allows for these different components of storage, computation, algorithms. You have curation, compute, and tooling that they can all start talking the same language, which is why we're a protocol. Just simply, it's a set of service contracts. So you all have signed contracts for service level agreements for IT providers, all that sort of stuff. It's exactly the same thing, except we put that into program code. So like what Elad was, actually Tal was saying with that computer program, what you do is you put those into kind of sequenced events that are verified and confirmed on the blockchain. So just the verifications are stored on the blockchain, but that allows you to create these kind of data service supply chains, which is something that we don't have today. So if you're a data science, 80% of your time is cleaning up data. And once you get it clean, then you have to start fixing it, and you have to like do some other stuff to it, and then you actually can do the fun stuff, which takes like 5% of your time, and then you're done and you have to redo it all. We're hoping that that process could be a lot more efficient. And if we do that right, then you start having tribes, groups of people who focus on services as well as problems. So this is kind of the more services where they start gathering around and trying to create this ecosystem of services that provide a specific point scale that allow these supply chains to propagate. And what we've seen is that we as a protocol do not want to be at the center of managing the ethics and the governance of this. We believe that tribes are the best way to handle this. So if you have kind of AI for good, then that AI for good tribe, the problem solvers, the data providers, the governments, all the enterprises, they work together to provide their governance. And in that way, we can step back and just hope that, or make the protocol support these initiatives. So just as a quick example, I'm Bob. I'm a researcher in Munich, and I want to solve a problem. What I do is I go to Ocean Protocol, I put my question towards it, I create a sandbox within there where I can dump kind of my algorithms. Somebody else comes on the other side, whether it's data or what have you, they provide that. And within that secure container, it could be a medical data supplier, they can know that their data is secure. And when that whole process is done, what returns is the result to the data scientist, and the data owner, the service provider, knows that their service was used, but they didn't lose it. That's the fundamental kind of mechanic of Ocean Protocol that we allow using blockchain technology, and a whole bunch of kind of service execution agreements is the term we use. And because we're creating our own cryptocurrency from scratch, we have this thing called the block reward, which rewards participants for providing data and services. So that's part of an incentive mechanism very similar to Bitcoin as well as Ethereum, except it's not proof of work, it's proof of proof. And what we see in the future is that you essentially get to a point where algorithms and data, like data streams and such, you could IPO them. So let's say there's 60 geospatial satellites around the world and they're giving a constant flow of data. People put money on that, they bet on it. At a certain point, you have enough money into that ecosystem where you could start IPOing data. And there's a whole bunch of other kind of implications here that we've thought about. But if I'm honest, the main reason why we built Ocean Protocol was two reasons. Number one is the world where we currently live in, Web 2.0 with Facebook, Google, and Amazon, is not a world that I think is sustainable. So that's going away from something. And going towards something is making it so that this technology can dissipate to all corners of the earth. That's going towards. This is what we want to go. And so there's second order impacts that are going to unlock a new data economy. And we may not have thought about all of them, but these are kind of the two poles that we're working between. So in summary, Ocean unites data and AI with state-of-the-art blockchain technologies. We accomplish this by rewarding participants with Ocean tokens that run service execution agreements for fulfilling agreed conditions. And we allow people to share these services and data securely. Our goal is to create a new data economy that allows you to own your data in ways that are not possible today, and spread opportunity around the planet. Thank you. I'll take some questions. Yes?
So how do you recruit the companies in order to provide their data, even if it's secure? Like, how do you get in there and convince them?
So we started this journey about a year ago formally, and it has been unbelievable, the resonance. We have well over 500 kind of inquiries, and of those inquiries from companies, we're working on about 20 specific use cases with them where they've already agreed to share their data. Most of this is in the jurisdiction of Singapore, where Singapore has also agreed to provide a kind of a regulatory sandbox where they have full indemnification. So that if there are data leaks or if there are problems, leaking of personal data, there's no court case, there's none of that stuff. Singapore will, as a government, will watch over the stuff. We also have PwC who joined on to provide data governance for the enterprises who want to go into the sandbox, and we see that that is a template that we can replicate in, for instance, the UK. Here in Germany just kicked off, I think, a $3 billion AI initiative. Canada, there's a whole bunch of places, I think Israel as well. So this is, just to give you kind of a quick answer, is that the resonance of this kind of approach is appealing to enterprise, which would have been probably the hardest barrier to get to. On the other side, data scientists, they're all over this. And we've built a community of almost 4,000 data scientists as well as practitioners who want to get on Ocean Protocol as soon as we get the technology out.
Why does this have to be decentralized as opposed to you guys becoming a new form of data broker, I guess?
Because that's not, like, so one of the, another way to answer that would be, would you have wanted somebody to own TCP IP? Probably not. We believe that we are the TCP IP for the sharing of data and services. And I'm very honest in the fact that I'm not complicated. I don't need a lot in my life. This is not money that drives me. I do want to give a good return to our investors, but I do believe that we are heading down a path of kind of environmental destruction. And my hope is that by releasing data, we have enough data scientists and people to solve some of these problems that are facing us. And then the economics is kind of a byproduct that hopefully also builds a data economy. Yeah.
So traditionally, the workflow of a data scientist would be to have a look at the data set, to try to understand it as well as possible, to basically lab it, to extract the signals, maybe to do a little bit of like feature extraction and feature engineering, and with all of these try to increase the signal to noise ratio in the data set, and that R has a prerequisite that you basically have the data and can look at it. So what is the state of the art right now with OmniML and encrypted data?
Yeah, so Two ways to answer that. Number one is we encourage providers to give a little bit of sample data, just so that data scientists have kind of a way to know what's going on. And on top of that, you also put reputation once people have used it. And then second thing is, I just came out from a product meeting this morning where we were talking about feature engineering. What is it that allows for a data scientist who may not be a developer? What are the tools that they need so that from a feature engineering perspective, they can just step in, see the data kind of from a three-dimensional view, and then know what they're dealing with, so they just kind of apply what they need. And that's going to be a years-long process.
Can you elaborate a bit about the HR topic you mentioned? Because we are collaborating right now with developers, actually raising a tool to help investors to scan the team or founders to build the right team.
So it started with an expert system where somebody who'd done 30 years of recruiting for salespeople, because there's a high turnover of salespeople in Germany, he created an expert scorecard on one side for the candidate profile, and he created an expert profile of kind of, actually just in the middle for sales, and then he was able to do that. And then he essentially realized that AI was his friend, because it wasn't an AI startup at the start. And then what he did was he mined the open platforms like Monster, Job Pilot, and a whole bunch of other ones, Sing. He mined all of them, collected their data through their open APIs before they realized it, developed this database, and then applied deep learning to it. And then now it's not just salespeople; it's any job actually. And so they're getting more traction and such. We can talk a little bit later about that.
If I can butt in, I'll change to some notes, but actually maybe a brief question for me. So how do you make money from this? Not whether you care, but really what is the likely or kind of semi-optimistic scenario for how this project makes money? You know, because it has a token, like, because we haven't heard this before. I don't know if we,
sure.
But circular economy and that kind of.
Sure. So we've done a lot of work in terms of token economics, which is the business model for open source projects, essentially the business model for nerds who are not money driven. We had challenges like Wikipedia, Linux, most of the work that went into like HTTP and the World Wide Web. This was either funded by government, or it was just the force of nature of a few or one people to build these tools that are services for humanity. Tokens gives nerds the ability to do these things and potentially get a financial upside. And tokens, as you know, they've dropped, I think, 93% for Ethereum, 83% for Bitcoin since the peak, but nonetheless, it's a new funding pillar on top of family offices, on top of VCs, on top of corporates that allow you to develop these technologies and cross the chasm, if you're familiar with that Harvard kind of concept, by building a community as you build the product. Because the community who signs on to buy the tokens, they're also going to be your most rabid supporters to get you over the chasm towards adoption and mainstream. And then the idea is that the token rises in value as the adoption happens. Now, for reality check, there are only about 3 or 4 projects that have crossed the chasm. Most of the projects are shit. Out of 3,000 or 4,000 of them, I would rate maybe 20 to 30 are worth investing in. Not investing in, but that will survive, let's just say. And then there will be about 5 or 6 protocols that will truly be world-changing and spread across the earth, and I'm hoping that Ocean will be one of them.
Thank you. Couldn't say it very much.